Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mind Your Mental. Just a reminder that this podcast is not meant to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. I know they are hard to find, and I get that. I have a bunch of resources on my website if you need them, but I am not your clinician. I am a psychologist, but I am not your psychologist. So if you need any specific help, please look for the help of a licensed mental health professional. Learn all you can learn from the podcast. Enjoy the episode. Welcome, everyone, to Mind Your Mental podcast. Today, we are joined by Tiffany Aliche, also known as the Budgetnista. She is a renowned financial educator and author, known for many things, alongside her New York Times bestseller, Get Good with Money, as well as other books such as the One Week Budget. So as the founder of the Budgetnista, she has led a financial movement aiding over 2 million women globally to save, pay off debt, and enhance their financial understanding through the Live Richer movement. I love that name, by the way. So with a background as a preschool teacher, Tiffany's educational approach has significantly impacted financial literacy, leading to the enactment of, and this is the coolest thing in life to me. I'll be honest with you, like just as someone who's trying to get into policy, this is the coolest thing in life. Leading to the enactment of the Budgetnista law. Like, I didn't even, but anyway, okay, let me stay on tap. So leading to the enactment of the Budgetnista law in New Jersey. What is that law, you guys may ask? Well, I'm going to tell you, it mandates financial education in middle schools. Y'all, I could tell by the time I graduated from high school, I could tell you that the mitochondria was the powerhouse of the cell. I could not tell you what to do with like money. When I tell you, that is like the coolest thing ever. You have a million accolades, but that is so cool, especially since it's so hard to get laws passed. Yeah. So Tiffany offers extensive online and in-person financial courses, notably through the Live Richer Academy. And she also shares insights via her blog and the award-winning Brown Ambition podcast. Tiffany's influential work has been recognized on many major platforms. I remember at one point when I originally knew I was going to have you on the show, I was seeing you on TV all the darn time. So like legit, like I was seeing you on TV all the time. I just don't do as much because I'm tired. Yeah. I'm tired. I was seeing you on TV all the time. So like Good Morning America, Times, Forbes, and you made history as the first solo Black woman featured on Money Magazine's cover in February 2020. All of that. And she's here today. So welcome to the show. Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm such a nerd, but the law thing was that was like the coolest thing. I'm looking into education policy right now, and just there are so many laws that in my opinion just don't make any sense, and it's just like these are things that have happened. But when I tell you, I feel like a lot of the work that you're doing is helping adults, and to a point where we never got to talk about it, thinking about how you will be changing the trajectory of people's lives through that law. Because there's so many things that I learned. I learned how to make a quiche, you know, like I know how to sew a pillow, but the financial things that we actually need that are typically the things that most adults complain about with their kids, like you don't know how to manage money, but I can make you a quiche, mom. You know, it's like that's not on them. So that was the coolest thing ever. So
thank you.
Can you share with us more about your journey from becoming a teacher to becoming America's favorite personal financial educator? How did your experiences shape your mission to help others get good with money? Because I really do think you're America's favorite personal financial educator. I see y'all watch, as soon as y'all see this, you're gonna be like, oh, I've been seeing her face forever. I've been seeing her
15 years. I've been doing it. 15 years.
Hey, everyone, just a reminder that Mind Your Mental is not just a podcast. It is also a amazing community, if I do say so myself. It's phenomenal. I mean, you get more access to me. What more could you want in this life? So if you want to join the community, if you're not already on the community, go to my social media. My social media is the same, Raquel Martin, PhD, and DM me the word community so you can get details on joining this amazing flipping community. You get more access to me, y'all. Like, I'm a delight. All right. Hope to see you there.
Well, it started, like so many people know my story in that my father was a CFO and an accountant. So when you said your husband, I was like, is an accountant? I'm like, and my 4 sisters and I learned about money at home. My dad was like the academic when it came to money, like this is how you budget, this is how you save, this is how you open a bank account.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was real life application. Like, let's go food shopping.
Okay.
Let's go, back to school clothes shopping. This is how you negotiate. This is how you look for a good deal. So between the two of them, I didn't know because, this as a doctor that kids will normalize anything.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of assumed like, oh, everyone talks about money candidly. Everyone navigates from a place of like, hey, let's decide as a family what we want to save for. And it really wasn't until maybe like high school that I realized, wait, you don't have Thursday night money talk at home? Wait, what do y'all do on Thursday nights? And especially college when debt collectors called my dorm room, calling for my roommate. And we thought it was funny because 17, 18.
Yeah.
And so we would do like prank calls back to them, changing our voices. We thought it was hilarious.
You don't take nothing seriously, man.
I mean, the most unserious. Just on there, like, you want to speak to who? Oh, you sound cute. What's your name?
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
that's how we would be on the phone. And so it wasn't until, you go home and I was like, Dad, guess what? Such and such called the dorm room, but we said this. And he's like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
Girl, that's serious.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, is it? He was like, yeah. I mean, she owes someone and, they could potentially go into her bank account. They could potentially do this. And I was like, oh. He said, when you go back to school, tell her this, and I would go back. And so what happened was that I believe either her father passed away, my roommate, or I think he passed away. And then her mother was left to raise her and her young daughter, her younger daughter, and was really struggling. And so put some things in her daughter's name in an effort to keep head above water. And as a result, that's what was happening, is that debt collectors were calling her, not because of choices that she made, but because of like choices that her mother felt forced to make because she didn't see another way out. And so I was like, it was kind of like this first time. I certainly didn't grow up rich. My parents were immigrants, 5 kids, but it was kind of like the first time that I realized that although things were hard, that it could be harder. Where it's like there's very few options, and I just was like, wow, I didn't even know you could put stuff in your kid's name. That was an option. And so it was kind of like the first time that I realized that information was power when it came to finances. And so I went back to the dorm. It was like, my dad said you should do this and this. And it would come up again, someone else down the hall. Can you ask your dad, what should I do? Okay. My dad said, and then I thought, I like this.
Yeah.
Like I'm the middle child, so don't give me a task to do. Don't let me shine. I'm a dance for a dollar now.
Listen, that's something. My sister-in-law, she's a middle child, and she will always say, like, I'm the middle child, so I guess they just forgot about me. It's just.
I know. So I'd be like, child, don't let me get a little shine. So then that's what happened. It was really like my friends asking questions and then me bringing it back home. And then I thought, well, I want to be a source of knowledge too, not just this conduit. And so I started taking classes, I started reading books, I started leaning in, and then I became the go-to girl for money advice. Like there was a girl who always got the boys, and it'd be like, oh girl, what should I wear? How are you getting the boys? And then there was a girl who had amazing hair. How'd you braid your hair? What are you using for your edges? And I was the money girl of like my friend group. And then after leaving college and hating all my corporate internships because I was too fun and too natural. I remember distinctly literally choosing not to work in corporate America because I was like, what about my fro?
Oh my goodness.
I had an afro. Literally, I was like 19. I said, so if I work in corporate America, I can't have this afro. Pick somebody else.
And people don't even realize that, like, I be trying to drive home with my students that, like, listen, those pink locks you got, that blonde buzz cut, honey, people had to make whole decisions about the trajectory of their career from their hair. It is not the same.
Yes, it is not, because you could go to work in that now, but then I was so young. I literally was like, well, I don't want to work in corporate. I had these internships. Yeah. It's boring. These people are boring. And I was just like, I want to do something fun. And when I was in college, I used to work at the childcare center, like as like work study. And I really like enjoyed it. And I said, well, maybe I'll just be a teacher for now till I figure out what to do. I ended up like teaching preschool because I didn't have a teaching degree at the time. And that was the only place you could teach. Like if you had a college degree, but not a teaching degree. And I said, okay, I'm going to go back to school to get my teaching degree. And I did. And then I went back and got my master's in education. But I fell in love with teaching preschool and I stayed there 10 years. And it was really there that I took my financial education to the next level. When I started, I want to say I was 21, 22, very close to the age of most of the parents. I taught in Newark, New Jersey, very black chocolate city.
Oh, yeah, I'm from Philly.
Yeah, so Newark is just like think Compton, think Dade County, think Philly, like. And so these parents, I'm 21, they 21. It's, hey, Miss Tiffany, let me hold something until Friday. No, Keisha, because you didn't give me back my $20 from last
Absolutely
time.
not, ma'am.
And so, but I mean, I didn't have any like, what are boundaries? I'm 21, you 21. But and so, but then I thought, wow, there is a lack. I remember this light bulb went on when someone was telling me how they were going to the check cashing place. Mm-hmm. I was like, what's that? And because my dad had already taught me when I was 16, open up your bank account. This is what you do. Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh, you could take your check there and they'll cash it. I was like, for free? They're like, no, girl, this is how much they take. And I'm like, wait, I don't understand. Why don't you have a bank account? Yeah. And it was just like, well, for a lot of people, it wasn't accessible. And I kind of didn't, like, it was the first time I got, like, there was eye-opening of, like, I grew up certainly financially not having a lot, but access to a lot of knowledge. Mm-hmm. And I got to see what it looked like when you didn't have financial access, but also there was not as much financial knowledge access too. And I thought, okay. So then I started talking to because basically they were the homies at this point. Like, girl, there is a bank up the street. Like when the babies go to sleep, I'm off. Like Miss Charlene will watch them. We can go open a bank account because even if you have to pay, they're like, oh, you got to pay a bank fee. Like it's $5 a month and you paying $50, $60 off your check. Or I remember when tax time came, because I've been doing my taxes as a teenager because my dad taught me. And I was like, you paying how much to H&R Block? No, during nap time, the babies are asleep. I'm doing my own taxes on my computer and my dad just reviews them. If you want, we could do your taxes. How much? I'm like, for free, just come.
That is amazing.
And he'll review them.
That is amazing.
Mm-hmm. And so that's how it all started, because I realized that the real difference was these kids and their parents were also smart. They didn't have knowledge, access, community when it came to financial education. And I was like, if you knew, Keisha would do it.
Yeah.
And then she needed access to people that could help. So that was through me. And then community, it was like, well, now we're all working on our decisions together. So nap time became like parent university. People would come in. And then I remember that's how I met my husband at the time. I was teaching preschool and he was the maintenance man. And so he came in, was like, I heard you hurt people with your budget. I was like, I do. Sit down. Let's go.
With his budget. That man.
I know you did.
He ain't even. That man did not need his budget, guys.
I look back on it, I was like, bruh. Right? Like, I heard this a cute preschool teacher. Let me go over here and get my budget.
That man did not need. He probably messed some numbers up real quick. Oh, you mean 1 + 1 is 2? You know what? I ain't even. And you know what? I think that we should take this. Thank you for helping me. Can I take you to dinner for helping me so much? Because you've been so kind.
So it was just like, but it was like kind of like what I realized that, well, one, I realized that teaching wasn't this small bubble, because I really enjoyed teaching. And I thought that teaching meant I enjoyed teaching the babies, because I did. Yeah. Like, I love the babies. I just love my kids. Like, they were just amazing. But I realized it's like, no, it's deeper than that. You just love teaching, whether it's the babies, grown-ups, whoever. And when that happened, I said, you know what? I think I want to start. I thought it'd be a nonprofit because I thought I'd be a teacher forever, where I go into the community to teach financial education. Then the recession hit and my school closed because they were nonprofit based, and I lost my job. And a friend of mine at the time was like, you've been helping people all this time. Why don't you charge for it? I'm like, can I do that? And so I started to, and nobody was paying because everybody was broke. And then I had to switch my business model instead of charge, because I really wanted to help people that didn't typically have access and they didn't have money. So I said, well, one of my mentors at the time basically said to me, you should look for contracts. Basically, who would help this community? Who's getting money to help them? Get money from those people. And I was like, okay. So I started working with the United Way. Banks paid the United Way to help the community. And I was like, well, I am already in the community. Why don't you pay me to do what the bank paid you to do? Yeah. And they were like, okay. So I started to do that, partner with different organizations that help the people I wanted to serve. And so it was such a great shift in business model of like, there is your customer, sometimes there's your paying customer. Yeah. So my customer was my community in Newark, New Jersey, who were struggling financially. But the paying customer were these organizations and banks who would pay me to do the good work. So it was like I could be a nonprofit. Basically, I was a for-profit that navigated kind of like a nonprofit. Yeah. And the Budgetnista was born. And 15 years later, that is still largely the business model to try to create as much accessible financial education, especially to women of color, as specifically to Black women. Although I always say I don't turn anyone away, but I center Black women in the work.
That's how, I mean, to be honest, that's how I feel. One, I have so many roles, but I too feel like I'm an educator first. So much of being a psychologist is education, providing psychoeducation about typical and atypical behaviors, letting people know that, like, no, you haven't lost your mind. That situation was absurd. And like, here is some ways to help you. And just thinking of it as like, that's something that you get to do. Even starting social media, I was just like, there is way more of a fun way to talk to people about, and it sounds insane, but there's a way better, more fun way to talk about depression. Like, there's a way better way to talk about depression than what I'm seeing. I'm like, y'all, like, you making 1 and 1 11. 1 and 1 is 2. Okay, like you're just making it too complicated, and that's legit the reason why I was like, y'all gotta. This is not fun. Like, you can make a little joke. It's depression. Like, they already sad. Make them laugh, honey. Like, you know, like it doesn't have to be.
It's true
that
though.
intense. So I love that, and also through your Live Richer movement and the aspect of being a Budgetnista, you've helped over 2 million women. Yeah. What do you feel as though, not feel as though, this is something you've established. What are some of the core principles or strategies that you emphasize in this movement to help women, particularly Black women and women of color? I center the Black experience as well. And I always state that, like, you know, this is meant to help everyone. However, there's so many realms where we're not centered that this is going to be my population of interest. What strategies do you emphasize to help women achieve financial freedom in the first place?
Well, as a psychologist, you'll appreciate this. We open with releasing of shame.
I love it. There's so much shame around money.
So much shame. And shame shield solutions.
Shame shield solutions. I know you, I mean, why is that? Is that your next book? Is that your next book? Are we collabing? Shame shield solutions, the mental health implications of finance. After this is over.
Let's just write it down.
After this is over. You know, people think that they can just tackle their money issues and not delve into the psych impact.
Because you'll be right back where we started.
You will.
You'll be right. I've seen it time and time again. It took me probably the first 5 or 6 years of helping people before I was like, oh, because I would help somebody, we'd work together, everything is there, automate, and then 6 months later, I ran up my credit card again. I did that, and I'm like, what's happening here? And I said, okay, let's take a step back, right? And sometimes I have to like become Miss Tiffany. That's what my preschoolers called me. I'm like, okay, so if this is one of my babies, 3 and 4, what's really happening here? Like when they would come in, before we got to the ABCs, I created a safe environment for them, right? Because if you come in, and because like there's Newark and there's Newark. I'm sure it's like this in Philly. There's oh, like where I live now. Oh, the North, what a Newark is like. And then there's the South where I taught where it's like, oh, those are gunshots. Yeah. And the baby sometimes would be like, they shot somebody outside and my parents, we went to go see the body. And there was a little girl, I'll never forget, Zakaya. Oh, what is her name? Something with a Z. I think it was Zakaya. I used to call her my little chocolate princess because she was super chocolate. But I remember being so disturbed because when we went out for a walk, every drug afflicted person would be like, hey, so goes Zakaya. Yeah. And then one day I did kind of like a family visit and she lived in one of the worst projects in Newark, Seth Borden. And so, but I did like, you know, like I was doing kind of like a walkthrough because I used to volunteer there. And quite honestly, like if you're a Black woman, I mean, there's dangers in general, but not directed at youth. So if you're a Black woman, +2, as a preschool teacher, they used to have us wear nursing uniforms. So I had my teddy bear, like nursing uniform, you know, so wasn't nobody messing with me. And I remember going over there to volunteer for something else to teach financial education in the community room and seeing her mother with full hijab on the corner selling drugs. And here goes little baby Z sucking her thumb, holding her blanket. That's why she knew all the drug afflicted folks in the neighborhood because her mother was doing it. And I remember being like, okay, I'm not here to give shame to her mother. I don't know her situation, but I told her mother, I was like, I don't know if you know this, but when we go for a walk, she knows all of them. And I'm not sure if that's what you're wanting for her. I said, I'm not going to tell you how to make money or how to support her, but there are all these little 16-year-old girls kind of just chilling. Let them watch the baby. Like, let them watch the baby. You give them their little $10 an hour so she doesn't have to sit here next to you seeing all this. And she was like, you're right, Miss Tiffany. Thank you. You know, but that is the shame will do nothing but keep you in bondage. And so it was I decided that like I was going to be like a mix between a love child between Mr. Rogers and Harriet Tubman. Like we gonna get free. But
Yeah.
there might be some musical numbers. It's going to be a lot of kindness. It's going to be a lot of kindness. It's hard enough out here, child. I'm not here to yell at you. I'm here. We're going to show you the way.
Yeah.
And so one of the ways to release shame I have learned through intensive therapy is to give voice to it. And so one of the ways I help, people on their journey is that I'll show you mine and then you show me yours. So I share all the mistakes that I've made, past, current, and the future. And it makes people say, well, dang, I ain't do all that. Exactly.
No.
So now you get, Black folks. I said, see, sis, we're not supposed to be judging.
See, okay, well, she can help me out because, I mean,
because she was a hot mess.
She was a hot mess. Okay, because I don't need no perfect niece to helping me out. Yes. Okay, I need somebody who gets it. Okay, yes.
And so we work on that first. Is that what is your deepest, darkest secret? Release that shame, give voice to it, say the thing out loud. Fear makes the wolf bigger than he is. Like you're so scared, you're so scared, you're so scared, only to find out you're not the only one. Then we get to work, which is what is your desired outcome? So we can start to create the plan toward it. It always starts with budgeting. No, you have to do that. Every 2 or 3 years or so, Prudential does this study called the African American Financial Experience. And they found that the number one can you guess the number one financial goal for the average Black person that does the study? What do you think their number one goal is? Financial goal.
I mean, is it as simple as to not be in debt?
Yes. Number one financial goal for Black folks, according to the study, is to get out of debt. What do you think the overall number one goal for everybody else is? If you were to mix white, Asian, everybody else, the number one goal for them.
Probably to buy a house.
Is to grow wealth.
To grow wealth.
But Black folks are always in deficit. Versus, you know what I mean? Always on the offense versus or always on the defense versus the offense. And I said, then the problem is that debt-free is a goal, but not the goal.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I help next step is to reset the goal, which should be to grow wealth as it means to you. Wealth might just mean I can afford my bills. I can go on vacation once a year with my family. My kids can do soccer, whatever that looks like. It doesn't have to be to make $1 million. Because the problem with making and centering getting debt free is that's not enough.
Okay.
There are people who are unhoused and they don't have debt. Okay. And my 7-year-old nephew, Roman, doesn't have student loans or a car note or whatever. Roman's broke. Okay. Debt freedom is not, debt freedom is not,
Roman can't even afford, he don't even buy his own fruit snacks.
I mean, he's over the house who ate my, wait, first of all, sir, I can eat whatever I want. It's my house. It belongs to me. And so debt freedom is very limiting if that's the goal. So resetting the goal is next. How do I grow wealth as it is meaningful to me? Whatever that looks like. And then we start with how does budget play a role in that? How does managing your debt play a role? How does managing your credit play a role? How does earning play a role? And so those are the fundamental foundational things we work on. Shame, goal setting, and then budget, credit, debt, earning. And we start with there. And from there, people's minds start to open wait, I can achieve more. And so that's what we do.
I love that. And I love the fact that when you talked about wealth, you talked about defining wealth in different ways. Because sometimes people, they mention wealth and they're using this myopic or limited view. It means oh, okay, that means I have to accrue a certain amount of money. But when you mention it, you state that wealth can be purchasing a home, or it can be taking your family on a vacation. There are so many different aspects to wealth, and understanding the uniqueness of that to your experience makes it so that you can streamline and be more specific with your goal, right? Because when it comes to mental health stuff, one of my biggest pet peeves is when stuff is too abstract. Just feel better. What you mean feel better? What does feel better mean to them? Does feel better? One person's feel better can be getting 6 hours of sleep. Another person can be I've always gotten 6. I'd actually would love to get 8. And I love the fact that you're able to tailor that to the individual. And it makes me think, do you think, or it sounds like you've already identified, but what are some of the systemic barriers that you see Black women facing when it comes to achieving financial wellness? And how can they navigate those challenges that are unique to them particularly?
Well, what's really hard for Black women in particular is that typically they are not only looking after their family that they birthed, but also typically are looking after the family that birthed them.
Okay.
And so it's really hard to get ahead So if you ask the average white person, like who owns a home, did your family, there's a study that was like, did anybody help you with the down payment? Oh, yeah, my grandmother. Oh, yeah, my grandfather, my mom, my dad. And because there were laws in place, when Granny bought her house, there were literally laws in place that gave them the GI law, the bill. Like there were laws in place that allowed the Homestead Act that gave access and tools to folks that were not Black to get access to really the fundamentals of wealth in America, which is home ownership. And so Granny got her house for $25,000. It's now worth $1.2 million. So she could pull a little equity out and slide grandbaby $50,000 for the down payment. And you'd be surprised. Black people are like, wait, you was getting down payment money?
Right. Like I remember hearing this story about someone talking to their realtor. It was a Black woman, and she was like, and they just stated like, oh, can you just get that money as a gift? Like, can you ask just a relative? They found a new realtor because they were just like, that was just such a ridiculous, like they looked at her like, and she was like, why are you even I can't work with you because now you done irritated the heck out of me. Even with the GI Bill, so many people don't
because realize, that's the norm.
Yeah, that's the norm. There were Black soldiers too.
For non-Black people.
People.
And so like that is like that. So that piece is really, it's a challenge to navigate of like, how much responsibility is yours to look after like family, that birthed you and looked after you, and how we know that the family that you gave birth to, these are your children, like this is your responsibility. And so that is really hard to navigate because it's not as easy as like, well, you got to tell Big Mommy no.
Right?
Not Big Mommy that raised you when your mom was not here. We telling Big Mommy no. We telling Pop, who took me on when my father, was working so much and was financially supporting me, but was not here emotionally for me because he had to work so hard. Like, that's not such an easy, it's not an easy one way thing. And so what I share is like, I like to look holistically at your life, right? So like, what are your desired outcomes? Who are you serving? Who are you helping? What do you want for yourself? And what needs to be done? Like if you are working a low paying job, what can we do to increase income? There are some things we can do like that are outside of your job. I don't think enough. Well, I saw an article that gave me a lot of hope that the Wall Street Journal did that said there's this huge uptick of Black people investing in the market.
Okay.
And I love that for us because so much of like a friend of mine teaches, like, this is how you invest in stocks. This is how you trade. So much of that has been purposefully taught in a way that is not culturally relevant. So you're like, I don't understand. It's like, but if you said it this way, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Why don't you say it that way? And so, yes. And so there is this huge uptick, so much so that I think it was like Gen Z or millennials. There are more Black millennials in the market relative to the percentage of their population size than white millennials, which I was like, wow, because this is a way to offset. Your job might say this is what you get paid, but if you are able to live below your means, so here are the rules. You have to make money, whatever that looks like. You have to live below your means or make more than you spend, because you have to have some excess. With some of that excess, you save some for emergencies, and with the rest, you must invest. Okay. So investing is going to look like whatever. It might be a business, it might be real estate, it might be the market. It is the only way to grow any sort of money outside of your job. Because if you invest long enough and are patient enough, eventually that investment will put you out of work. Like, let's just say you're putting aside a few thousand a year, you have some years that the market goes really up. And over time, if you invest consistently enough and long enough, and maybe it's a property and a business and the market, and before you know it, like my investment in the Budgetnista put me out of work. I no longer teach preschool. The Budgetnista pays me, for real. Like, there are months where, every month gross, I make maybe 4 or 5 times more in a month what I used to make annually as a preschool teacher. Where else can you do that but investing? And so but in the market, I have friends who've made tens of millions of dollars in the market and started off as a vice principal. You know what I mean? Like, it's just time and energy and investment of yourself into learning the thing. And what I love is that there's so many financial educators who will make it culturally relevant, whether it's Terry Ijama, whether it's Earn Your Leisure, whether it's Ian, a Wall Street trapper who literally came from the street and will explain investing to you like, okay, you trapped outside? Let me break it down for you how it's similar to what they're doing at Wall Street. And you're like, oh, that's it? Yes, that's it. And so I love that, this cultural relevance. So it's like, it's not beyond me. And so what I love is that the market does not know your color. that you are able to get access to income and money for yourself and your family in a way, at least right now, they have not figured out how to lock us out from. So you better get it while the getting is good, because I have a feeling with that article coming out, they're going to be looking for ways.
Well, yeah,
But
once they figure out, I mean,
yeah.
anything that evens the playing field, right? Like
Yes.
I remember hearing that the master's is the new bachelor's, and I was just like, I have never
Yes.
heard anyone state that the master's is the new bachelor's or education isn't as important until I kept hearing articles about Black women being the
Yes.
most educated
Yes.
demographic, and now all of a sudden, I mean, it's just a degree. What?
Yeah.
Just a degree
Yes.
that kept so many people out of the spaces that you now inhabit and were able to grow in. Now it's just a degree.
Yes. Yes.
I think you're right. I'm gonna have to reach out to some of those people and ask them to come on too. Because I was gonna ask you, that was gonna be my next question. Like, in addition to you, who are some of your favorite financial educators? Okay, so say them again. Who were the three that you mentioned?
So there's of course, there's Earn Your Leisure. Mm-hmm. This is Troy and Rashad. They're awesome. Okay. There's Wall Street Trapper.
Wall Street Trapper. I'm reaching out to Wall Street Trapper first on the name alone. I ain't gonna lie, like that, you have piqued my interest.
And so there's Terry Ijama. Okay. So these are investing folks mostly. Okay. I'm trying to think of so there's also Jamila of Journey to Launch. Okay. She has a financial podcast herself. There's my podcast partner, Mandy Woodruff for Brown Ambition. And so what I love about Mandy is that she focuses a lot about negotiating higher pay for yourself in corporate America. She's really good at that. I'm trying to think, so many people I came up with kind of sat down. You're like, who else?
I mean, you gave us a lot of names, and also you have your podcast, which I know you be dropping gems every single episode. So
no, but there's never enough. Yeah, because the thing is, everybody has their specialty. Right? Some people it's real estate. Some people are generalists. I find myself being on our podcast. We talk about money, personal finance, business, career, and our brown skin. And so there are a myriad of people that you can be like, oh, for this specific thing, I want to lean in. Okay. And I think that's really important to do so. That I don't believe that somebody should be the end all be all, because no one's going to know all the things. Some people are going to be really good at something. And you're like, okay, I go to them for budgeting advice. I go to this person for credit. I go to this person for investing in the market, and this one in real estate, or this one estate planning. Mm-hmm. It's important to build a team. I believe that that we work best in community. Yes. My parents are both born and raised in Nigeria. And the first time I went, I did not really understand how our village was set up until my dad was introducing all these people that we would see as we were walking and taking the tour of the village. And my last name is Aliche. And he would be like, oh, that's Samson Aliche. And that's Macy Aliche. And that's Ukona Aliche. And that's Rondi Aliche. And I'm like, because Aliche is not a common last name. It's just me and my sisters, my mom and dad, for the most part, here in America. And I was like, how is that by Aliche? And my dad looked at me like I was dumb, like, it's the village. And I said, yes, I don't.
And I know, man, when I tell you, I know that look like this child. This.
And he was like, the village is your family. Yeah. I was like, wait, what? He was like, that's how villages were set up. Yeah. He was like, that it's like, your grandparents, your nieces, your aunts, and everyone lives in this village. It's part of your family. And then your mother's village is over there. And then when I was interested in your mother, the elders would get together and verbally go down our family tree to make sure that there was no overlap. Mm. He was like, we're not like some of these other folks that would be marrying cousins. We know who we're talking about.
King and queen, how adults just they will educate and throw shade, and I'll be like, I love it.
Right? He was like, people say so much about Africans. He said, but we wasn't doing all that.
Listen, we was just verified our stuff now.
And it would be because literally you could meet a 6-year-old in the village, and they would know your name, and they would say, your father is this, your grandfather is this, your great grandfather. Oral history is so important to African culture, and so every child is taught back 6 generations. And so one day when they're the elders and they have to, oh no, because you guys share the same grandfather. Sorry, y'all not talking, And so that really opened my eyes about I could be walking with my cousin who was 7 at the time, and a woman would be sweeping her front. Chichi, I heard you came number 1 in your Spanish, your math today. Congratulations. And I'm like, and she'd just be beaming oh, thank you, auntie. And I thought about what that must do, that everyone here knows your accomplishments. If your mother told me you're acting up in church, I'll see you. You're because every auntie could give you that spanking. If,
I will see
unfortunately.
You.
Yes, I will see you. Yes. And so I just thought that is the space that we came from, this communal living, this village mentality, that every child here is my child as well, that I'm here to love on you, look after you, and make sure that you're safe. And so somehow, we've come here to the United States and lost so much of that. And what I'm trying to do is like rebuild that community with this purpose of getting back financially strong. Like you're not alone, and you ought not to be. You're not supposed to do it by yourself. Yeah. And I'm not supposed to be the only teacher. Auntie looks after you, your grandmother, your mother, your uncle, everyone here is looking after what's best for you. And so I'm trying to recreate that, through this financial education space, because that's where we thrive.
I love that. I repeat it often, and I'm going to keep repeating it until I'm no longer on this earth. And then I hope somebody else repeats it, that therapy is not required to heal. It is an amazing addition. Therapy, you don't need therapy, but you do need community. It's not possible to do it in isolation because you need the support of those around you. And as someone who is a psychologist and who also trains clinicians coming up, I'm very interested, I know we're going to write a book on this because we've established this, but I'm very interested in the intersection of financial health and mental well-being. So what kind of advice would you give to therapists or social workers or counselors or any, licensed mental health professional on incorporating financial wellness?
I'm not a therapist, obviously, but when I first start, when I work with someone, I usually say, how did we get here? Tell me your story.
Yeah.
And they're like, huh? I'm like, well, then I might give them a snippet of mine just so they can understand what I mean. Like, oh, I made these financial mistakes, and then this happened, and this is how I got here. And some people go far as back as when I was 6, I'm here for it, or just the last 6 months. Yeah. And so, because I want to know, like, you are here asking for me to help you with your credit, but how do we get here is what I want to know, because you won't be able to help whoever you're helping without understanding, like, why are they making these decisions? Is it a place of fear? Is it a place of no knowledge? Sometimes it's like, oh, I'm actually not afraid. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
Is it that, maybe there's this parental, like, oh, my mom always told me that I should not have a credit card. And that's why, I'm struggling now to get a home because I don't have any credit. Because sometimes the solution is simple, and sometimes the ask is simple, but the solution is way less simple because they're needing more help than even I can provide. So just like asking, like, like incorporating those type of questions. Like my sister has a doctor now who she said, like, this is just a general doctor. She said, girl, this lady asked me about everything but my health. Like, she'll be like, how your feet? How your teeth feeling? How's your hair growing? How's your stool? And I love that. She was like, I never had a doctor ask about all these surrounding aspects of my life. And I think that asking that, incorporating that, like, well, how are you financially? How does that make you feel?
Yeah.
How'd you get there? When you are spending money, what's the voice saying in your head? Like, is it the voice of like, girl, get it, you deserve it? Or look at you again, once again, messing up? Like, what is that voice? So that way you can pull back and say, okay, this is the overall work we need to do, because it's showing through the way you're navigating your money. It's never just money. There's so much meaning behind that money. And the way someone navigates their money will tell you a lot about how they feel about themselves, how they feel about the world around them, how they feel about their place in this world. Like, I did not realize, it wasn't until I have an amazing therapist, Dr. Green. Hey, sis, she's the best. Dr. Green, like, Black women. I'm like, I don't know. Dr. Green could be 35 or 45, maybe even 50. Who knows? But I just love Dr.
Listen,
Green.
I don't even shout out my clinician's name because I need her to have at least some aspect of space just in case I need to reschedule. So people ask me that all the time. I know. Like,
people be like, who Dr. Green? I'm like, just keep it at that.
Yeah, they be like, oh, Dr. Martin, who's your doctor? None of your business, because sometimes I need her to have a little bit of availability. And I told her that too. I was like, girl, I don't give your information to nobody, honey, because like, they got to be doing real bad, and I'm full.
I know, right? Like, okay, girl, I guess
that's less time for me.
But she's amazing. But it was through our talks about money that made me realize, I have a worthiness issue. Because I would say something like, during the pandemic, everybody was buying like the Peloton bikes. And I don't know, offhandedly, we were just like chit-chatting. And I was like, oh yeah, like, I know everybody's getting the Peloton bike, and my podcast partner, Mandy, wanted to get one. And I was just told her, girl, just get it. You make good money. I don't know why you're, if it was a financial thing, I get it, but just get it. Like, you have 2 kids, you're really stressed, and you want to be able to move your body. Get the bike. It's not going to put you in financial peril. And Dr. Green was like, what about you, Tiffany? And I was like, oh no, I can't get the bike.
And I wasn't talking about me.
Yes. And she was like, why? Are you struggling financially? She knew I was. I said, no. And she was like, well, why can't you get the bike? And I almost said, like, it's almost like, well, I don't deserve to have that. Why should I get it? And I was like, oh my gosh, wait. I didn't, it was through conversations about money that I realized I was struggling with feeling deserving of good things, because I learned growing up that there was safety in silence, and that the smaller I can make myself, the safer I could be. Don't ask for too much. So she and I named it the small piece of chicken syndrome, because I was the type that I would be like, oh, hey, everybody, I made chicken, and everyone else could choose. And I would, before you even would choose what chicken you want, I would take the small piece and be like, I'm going to take the small piece so everyone else can have the big piece. As long as everyone is good, then I could be safe. So I would volunteer for the small piece of every part of life. You can have the bigger room, even though I'm paying for vacation. You can have the bigger piece of chicken, even though you're vegan. You should get the bike, not me. And I said, so it was through that lens that we realized there's something happening here. What is that voice telling you? And it was really, everything dates back to obviously childhood. And for me, it was really like, sometimes growing up African can be trauma in itself. And there was just a lot of, like, be small, be quiet, be easy, or there's hell to pay.
Yeah.
And so I really learned to be very pleasing and easy, and I'll take the small piece and everything's fine, which taught me that upbringing teaches you to have no boundaries. And I didn't. You can always encroach and have what is quote unquote mine, because if that's going to keep me safe, I don't mind giving it all away. You can have it. And so it was financially talking about my money that brought that out, because I did not know that. Because with all that I've accomplished, you would think like, not Tiffany. And I didn't know that until having the conversations about what I wouldn't buy myself, what I didn't think I deserved to have financially. It wasn't about the money. It was me thinking like more meant exposing myself to harm and undoing some of those practices that, like, you can have the thing, Tiffany. Like, you can choose this, even if chicken is their favorite, you can have the biggest piece. Sometimes every once in a while, it's nice to be like, okay, you're a guest, but every single time,
right?
For people
like,
who don't even eat
you
chicken,
have been here every Sunday for the past 6 months, honey. You are no longer a guest here.
Yes. And so just in life, she'll remind me, she'll be like, are you taking a small piece of chicken again? And I'm like, oh,
I love that.
So I just say, like, so as a clinician, as a therapist, as a psychologist, that you can learn a lot by the way people manage their money, by how they think about themselves.
Yeah. I love the fact that you mentioned, like, when you're spending money, what is the voice in your head stating? And also just incorporating, we did an episode, I think it was actually our first one of this season, of talking about self-care. And me talking about financial self-care, like, and understanding that, like, self-care isn't always going to be sexy, and half the time it's not even fun, but it's necessary for you to get to the fun that you deserve, right?
Yeah.
And I said, like, self-care is not, it's not like lingerie, it's tube socks and possibly like a high cut brief, because like you just need something that's going to get you to where you need to go. And a lot of people don't think about financial self-care. Thinking about the decisions they make in scarcity and where that may come from. And they think that money is just money. And you mentioned a very good part, that money is never just money.
It's never.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. First of all, tell the people where to find you, as well as, they can find you on TV. Beyonce, she has this thing like, you can find me on the radio. We find you on TV.
That's right, B. She better talk her talk.
When she said that, I was like, oh, she said one time, only the radio can play me. Girl.
Yes. Sometimes you gotta talk.
You got to.
Well,
you got to do that.
You can find me, obviously, my books, my Get Good with Money, which is my New York Times bestseller. It's available everywhere, including getgoodwithmoney.com, budgetnista.com, for everything else. And I'm the Budgetnista on all the social platforms, YouTube, Twitter. I don't really TikTok, although I'm there. Instagram is probably my favorite, and Facebook. And Brown Ambition. If you love podcasts, like, I have an amazing one where we talk about exclusively money, career, business, and navigating all of those things in our brown skin, myself and my podcast partner, Mandy. We're like 7 or 8 years in, and so we have a good time. It's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
I love that. And I know you don't TikTok that much, but you should actually look up your name on TikTok, because people tag your book a lot.
I know they do. Somebody told me that.
Yeah, like about like as like good reviews. There was this, and you ain't gotta say nothing about them, but there's this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, that's like supposed to be like a very big book. And one of the biggest TikToks with your name in it is like what you should read instead of this book. So like, I don't know, if you get a time, you should look up your name. Like, people review your
on over there.
Yeah, people review your book all the time and talk about like how helpful it is, because you provide tangible things. You provide steps. And, a lot of people, yes, we want to know the background of stuff, but we also want to know, like, these are tips that you need to do. So you need to go on over to TikTok and, like, get your flowers.
Let's go ahead. I just hired a new young girl.
Yeah, you need to. And, honestly, if you want to boost up your stuff, you need to stitch those videos. Hi, I wrote this book. And also, did you know that in addition to having this amazing book, I also do the podcast? I'm just saying.
That's true.
I'm just saying,
All right, I'm going to take it from the good doctor.
You're not on there, but you're on there. I love your book.
It's the radio.
Yeah,
I'm on the radio.
You're on there. You're on it now. But also, are there any new projects? Because I know you have your community, but is your community always open?
Yeah, so I have an online school called the Literature Academy. Okay. And so, but like a lot of my communities are free. Yeah. So there's a big one on Facebook, which is just Dreamcatchers. So you can look that up. There's like 500,000 people in that group. Oh, yeah. And so, but here's the thing, if you go to thebudgetnista.com, there's all these tools, resources, access to the community, my books, everything is there. Okay. And so if you're looking for help, free or otherwise, all those things are there.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I very much appreciate it. I will get back to your assistant about, we should probably come up with a proposal for the book. God. So I will give you some time. I know you're super busy, but we do need to start working on this. Like, we've had this idea for like 10 minutes and yet we don't have any timeline. So I will get back to your assistant about this and, we'll roll it out and we will just go from there. And I look forward to collaborating with you on this project, being right with you and on the radio as well. I look forward to it, honey, because let me tell people, money is not just money. So I'll let you know. I know you're busy, so I'll send you a message and we'll just go from there. So, I'm so glad we thought of this. This was great.
Well, I'm glad you had me on. I don't know about all that, but I'm glad you had me on.
You said I ain't got no more time for nothing else. Don't you put me down for this. We'll see.
Oh my God.
We'll see. My mom calls me persistent and relentless. So we'll see.
Oh, are you an only child?
No, I'm not. But let me tell you something. I learned very early on, affiliate and stuff, like advocate for myself. So like, I'd be like, I just want to confirm. That's the thing I always say. I just want to confirm. What are we doing though? Because like, and even venturing into the small business place and stuff like that, my mom has always said, if you're already at no, if you don't ask the question, you'll stay there. I pitch myself. Yep. I ask questions. I'd be like, I sent this on 7 days ago. So, hey, just a gentle nudge. You haven't emailed me back. And even if the answer is no, I'm going to need a verbal no. Yes, okay, or you will hear from me. I don't get embarrassed, so you will hear from me. I love that.
It's smart
4 to 7 days.
Because oftentimes, what people don't realize that someone not answering you back doesn't mean it's no. Sometimes it's like I didn't get it. Emails or it slipped through. A lot of times it's
and a lot of times. Let me tell you something. When people like say no, I'm like, oh my God, I must not have explained myself well, because there's no way you can say no to me because I this is a fantastic idea. So like I just need to explain myself better. And don't tell me we'll see. Because that's not a no. That's a...
Oh, no.
Now, I get boundaries. When you tell me no means no. But don't say maybe to me, honey. Okay? I will schedule an email to be sent in 6 weeks.
Oh, my God.
And persistent and relentless, y'all. That's
what you should name the podcast. You should have named the podcast.
Persistent and relentless. My mom be like, wow. I'll be like, I don't mind pitching myself. Who else gonna do it?
No, that's smart.
Who else gonna do it? Really so if y'all get nothing from this episode, 1, money is never just money. And 2, pitch yourself, y'all. If they don't say no, that's not a no. I need I teach my son all the time. Okay, so we need verbal. You need to respect verbal and nonverbal no's. But that verbal one is the only thing I can see via email. Okay. So you said later, and I will legit, after that, I'll be like, great. I will put an email, schedule send 6 weeks from now at 7:05 a.m. just so that I get the answer before my work
books
day.
Are a long process, Chef.
You gotta pitch yourself, man. This whole building a company. I'm like, man, this is crazy. But let me tell you something. You ain't going to outwork me. There are plenty of people who are like, they have bigger platforms and bigger networks, and they even may be smarter. But let me tell you something. You're not going to outwork me.
Exactly.
Which, like,
for real,
that's probably something I should probably talk to my doctor about as well. But yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.